welcome back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro. You know, if you're listening to this show and you're like, hey, I thought those guys were on 6 to 8 p.m. Well, you're right. We used to for like a year or so. But they've moved us 9 a.m. to noon. We've expanded our show due to popular demand, right, JD? We've expanded our show an hour. We're very happy to be doing that.
Yes, the most popular of demands.
Yes, and it gives us an opportunity to do interviews like this on a regular basis. Not only is this woman in studio my personal attorney, but and she did a great job. We'll get to that with one of my personal cases, but she does a good job for a lot of people in this town, personal injury. Her name is Sandy Van. She runs the Van Law Firm in Las Vegas, and I'm so glad you're here. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great.
Don't be afraid to talk right into that microphone.
Yeah.
Be aggressive.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want people to give a little bit of, I want you to give a little bit of background to tell people. Talk to me a little bit about your background, how you got in the business, how long you've been here. I know you've won a bunch of awards as well. So just give people a little bit of background on you.
I've been in Las Vegas for about 27 years. I've been an attorney for about 11 of those 27 years. I got into personal injury because I've always wanted to help people.
Mm-hmm.
My background is in finance, and I wanted to help people with like their retirement accounts and helping them plan their kids' college fund. And when I got out of school, the downturn happened. I think I hit both downturns. So when I got into out of college, 9/11 had hit. And I was like, oh, the financial markets are like half what they used to be. And I was like, this is not the time to get into that. And one of my clients was a Supreme Court justice. And she said, hey, why don't you get into, go to law school? And I'm like, okay. So went to law school and just decided to help people. In personal injury law, you can make a really big difference with people that are injured, not just in car accidents or slip and fall cases in Las Vegas, but also we do a lot of mass torts too, like hernia mesh, and those people are just like, hey, I've had like 7 surgeries. My, I'm not able to work. My stomach has a hole in it, and all this other stuff. So we can really help those people, and so we do a lot of things like that.
I have a lot of questions to get to you in a short period of time, but I just want to kind of relate my personal experience. I've been in 2 car accidents in Las Vegas in 20 years. Both of them were not my fault. The first accident I was in was about 12 or 13 years ago where somebody just cut right in front of me. I was going 35, 40 miles an hour. He admitted fault. He did not have a driver's license. He was arrested. They took him in. I hired an attorney. It was a big attorney in Las Vegas. Not going to say his name, but they did an atrocious job. They made more money than I made, and when it came down to all the medical bills and anything, I literally made nothing, enough maybe to pay some bills for a week. It was a joke. I get into a car accident about a year and a half ago maybe, and I'm going to meet a friend for lunch. It's a friend I no longer talk to anymore, so I thought it was a gift from God almost, the accident saying you probably shouldn't be hanging out with this person. But anyway, that's another story for another show. I get into the accident.
A good story.
Somebody rear-ended me going like 45 miles an hour. It ruined my car. Which is hard to do because my car looked like it was ruined to begin with. But that's another story. I was hurt. My neck, I felt like I had a concussion. I went straight to the hospital. Again, they admitted fault. They were nice people. Within 48 hours, I contacted you guys. Within 48 hours, you guys got me medical help right away. And I needed that help. I actually had a minor surgery. So I was in a lot of pain for a couple weeks, but without that medical help, I don't know what I would have done. This stuff's really expensive. So not only did you guys get me immediate medical help, but you got me, and I hate to sound like a commercial when I say this, but it's the truth. You got me the settlement that I deserved. At least I felt. And you guys were so helpful throughout this process. I had numbers to call in case I had a question, in case I needed an update on my case. And you guys, to me, are just very different than the way a lot of other people do this type of practice now. Now, I didn't have a $100,000 case or $1 million case or any of that stuff. So it wasn't a huge amount of money for you guys to make, yet I felt like you guys treated me like it was, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I mean that wholeheartedly because I think that's really important. And you're a friend. I've known you for a long time. I think I met you at the poker table. You're a pretty good poker player, by the way. But no, I mean, that's my personal experience with you guys. You guys did a really good job. I wanted to make that very clear because I love having people in here that support our show, but at the same time, I support what they're doing. And you guys just did an absolute phenomenal job with my case, and I mean that wholeheartedly, and I thank you for that. So explain to me exactly what personal injury law is.
It's basically when someone gets hurt through no fault of their own, It could be a car accident. It could be they were injured in a casino. Maybe something fell on them. Maybe they slipped on some liquid in the casino. But that's basically it without getting too technical.
Okay, so what I kind of alluded to that in what I just talked about, but what makes you guys different?
Well, again, we really do care about our clients. You know, we cared about your case, even if it's not $1 million case or anything.
Right.
I can think of instances where one of our clients was like, "Oh, I'm going to get laid off from my job." And he actually did. And we actually stopped everything that day and decided to go fill out retroactive FMLA for him. We're like,
Oh, wow.
you know, it's very important that our client gets his job back. And we had one other client who was hit as a pedestrian. And she's like, the guy hit and ran and we didn't know who he was or anything. And she's like, I can't even lift the salt pellets
Oh, my God.
into my house. So we ordered her some salt pellets, had them delivered to her house, and then had someone come over and
Wow, that's going the extra mile to
dump
help
them into her
to help
machine.
somebody. Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
This is a question I get from people all the time, and it happens. Let's be honest. A lot of people are taking Uber and Lyft these days. So if somebody gets into an Uber or Lyft, whether it's the driver's fault or not, let's just say it's somebody else's fault, what are the laws there? Can you file lawsuits if you're taking a Lyft or an Uber?
Yes, you can. You can file a lawsuit against the person who hit you, that insurance until you get all of the insurance coverage they have, depending on whether or not they're driving for work or not for work or something, or it's a commercial policy or regular policy. And then you can also go after Uber and Lyft do have some policies for uninsured motorist coverage. So they do make you go through a lot of hoops on that, you know, things like that.
Sandy, statistically, how bad are the drivers in Las Vegas compared to anywhere else in the United States?
I think they're pretty bad. I don't know the statistics, but like there's a big market for that here. So I imagine, you know, there's been a few times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I was almost hit. Which leads me to like something else, like some driving tips, you know, some accident driving tips that we should have. You should have dash cams here because people will be like, you caused accident. I'm like, no, I was driving in my lane and you merged into me. Which
What do they
is
charge for those, by the way?
Huh?
What do they charge for, like, one of those dash cams?
Oh, it could be like a good one, maybe $200, $300.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah,
That's
just
reasonable.
ask for it for your Christmas or something. You know,
So how does that work? It just every time you press a button, it records over and over. Like, how does that work?
It has some kind of
Mechanism that, like a surveillance
like
camera?
when you turn on your car, it like turns on.
Ah.
So yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now, there's a lot of slip and falls in Las Vegas, right? Some real, maybe some not so real. I want you to talk about that. Have you ever taken a case where you kind of suspected that the client maybe made it up and then you stopped taking the case? I mean, have you ever had a situation like that?
No, we normally take the cases that we think that
Right.
it has happened. It has happened where it turns out it's not the case. Like we look at the video, we're like, your arm did not get stuck in that elevator. Like you totally walked through that elevator. I saw it, and I'd have to drop the case. But yeah,
Does that happen a lot in casinos? Like, where do these things happen the most? Supermarkets? Like, what?
they could happen anywhere. We've had some supermarket cases. We've had some slip and falls in casinos. We've had elevator cases. We have near drowning cases as well. So,
Interesting. Interesting. Go ahead,
If
JD.
you can discuss it publicly, what's the highest profile case you've worked on?
well, we do have a case that where and our client, her mom was hit by a car. No, hold on. Yeah, her mom was hit by a car, and it was the nail lady. She was a nail lady. It was all over the news, and the mom died, and the girl was like driving with, you know, fake ID, had stolen the car and things like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So this is a question that I wanted to ask you. Why is it sometimes better to file a lawsuit rather than just settling at a court? Because a lot of people assume, hey, let's just settle out of court. Let's just get the thing over with. So explain that to people.
Well, the insurance company is not your friend. They are not your good neighbor.
Right.
You are not in good hands. You know, there's been Anderson Cooper. They've had like segments on Anderson Cooper saying that the insurance companies are there to delay, defend, and deny. So you'll always get the runaround if you don't hire an attorney usually to help you. You know, things like that. Yeah.
Are there any other? So you gave the tip of like having the dashboard camera. Are there any other tips that you could give to locals?
For sure.
Yeah. What are some other tips that you could tell people?
Well, if you're injured in an accident, even if you're in an accident, you should definitely get the VIN number of the vehicle that hit you, whether it be from the door or from the glass, where the front glass is, or from their registration or insurance. You should get their insurance. You should get their ID, and you should get their license plate number. A lot of people don't get that. They're in shock. They're like, oh, I don't know what to do, and the police got it all. The police report takes 10 days at a minimum to get, and sometimes it can take longer. If it's like they're investigating a crime or something, it could take 30 days or longer. And usually the insurance company for the defendant, they need that police report to accept liability. Nobody's going to fix your car or replace your car or give you a rental if they didn't cause the accident. So if you have all that stuff, you'll know if he has insurance, or we can actually look it up. So if you have the VIN number and the license plate number, we can actually look it up on the DMV website to see if they have valid insurance at that time.
How much harder does it make to settle a case where an illegal immigrant hit someone else, or is it even possible? Is there some type of foundation or government entity that helps you do that?
No, you'd still be going after the illegal immigrant, and some of the legal immigrants, they do have some kind of license, like a different kind of license here, and hopefully they have insurance. Another thing that you really want to have for yourself is uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage and med pay. So that covers you in case the person, whether or not they're undocumented or not, has insurance. Because in case he doesn't have enough insurance, or hits 7 cars and you have to split the insurance coverage with 7 cars, or he hits and runs, you have coverage in case that happens.
Do you see a lot of cases like that here?
We do see a lot of cases where there's either minimum insurance, so the state minimum, which everyone thinks is full coverage, is actually $25,000 worth of coverage. That doesn't go very far if you're injured pretty badly. Like my mom, she's like, oh, well, I don't really need great insurance. I drive a really crappy car and I'm a good driver. I'm like, well, what about the guy that's driving on the wrong way of the road or is drunk driving or something?
Sure.
So my mom has really good UMUIM coverage, uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage in case that happens.
Right. So explain this to me, and this is the unfortunate part of the business, I guess, but you see some cases where somebody might lose a limb, might lose their legs, might be a quadriplegic the rest of their life, and they get next to nothing. And that's not usually the attorney's fault. They might only make a couple $1,000. And then I see other cases where it's a fender bender and somebody might make $50,000. Explain that, explain the laws, explain the money situation, because that does seem to happen a lot, not just in this town, but all over the country.
Yeah. Well, you can only get whatever compensation. It's based on your injuries. It is also based on your medical bills, future care that you may need, but it's also really based on the insurance policies.
Right.
So the guy that hit you may only have the state minimum, which is $25,000, which is very important. Why you should have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage.
That is a difficult part of your job. If you're representing a client that, say, has to be in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, and you are the one, or somebody in your firm is the one, and every attorney, I would imagine, for the most part, in personal injury has to do this, and you have to be the one to deliver the news to them. They can't walk for the rest of their life, and they know it, and you have to say, listen, I'm sorry, all I could get you is $2,500 based on the insurance policy. I would imagine that is, it's almost like you're a doctor telling a family member, I'm sorry, your son can't walk again. And it's devastating news, right? I mean, how do you handle that? That's got to be hard.
It definitely is. And we do have to say that. All we can do is tell them that most of the time when people see attorneys, they see us after the fact. They're not like, oh, I got a DUI or I'm going to get a DUI. What should I do? Well, maybe go, hire an Uber or Lyft or something.
Sure.
Or they get audited or something, and then they come see us. So I always explain to them in our intakes that, hey, we want the client that comes, like, for every accident that they have, that they refer us their friends and family. So we want to tell you what to do in your next accident. So, we tell them to go get UMUIM. We tell them to go get that uninsured, underinsured motorist. We tell them,
there's only so much you can do, though.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do. If you're just joining us, Sandy Van in studio from the Van Law Firm. Give them a buzz, 702-500-HURT, or you can give them a call at 702-529-101. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to take a quick break, And when we come back, I want to talk about a personal injury law case, a high-profile one that took place in Las Vegas. 3 people lost their lives. 2 people were seriously injured. I want to talk to you about that and get your thoughts on this case when we come back. You're listening to The Vegas Take, and we'll also take some of your phone calls at 702-257-5396. If you have a question you want to ask her, now's the time to do it. 257-5396 is the number to call. We will take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN. All right, welcome back. It is The Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. We got Sandy Van in studio from the Van Law Firm, certainly one of the better attorneys here in the Valley. And we're also taking your phone calls at 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call, 257-5396. Why don't we try to squeak in a quick phone call here? Let's go to Bill. Bill, you're on with Sandy Van. What's your question?
Well, it's Gilbert.
Gilbert, I apologize.
What's
go
up,
ahead.
Gil?
That's okay. I get that all the time.
That's all right.
I had a quick question for Sandy.
Sure.
I hope you can squeeze me in. I was on the golf course on the 10th tee, actually on the 10th green. Let me back up a second. I'm all flustered.
That's okay. Take your
I
time.
was chipping up to the 9th green.
Yeah.
And the guy behind us whacked a real good one, and he hit me right in the temple.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was down for the count.
Yeah, that's serious.
My son-in-law thought I was a goner. And I was just curious. I got the guy's name, and I went into after I recouped my senses. It took a while, but he apologized when he approached the green, and we all went into the pro shop there.
So, Gil, is your question for Sandy, can you sue him? Is that kind of your line of questioning in this circumstance?
Well, as far as damages,
yeah.
I mean, I was seeing double vision.
Oh, that's serious. Okay, so let's see what
he
your...
hit me right in the temple.
No, I understand. That's you can make no mistake about it. If a golf ball hits you in the temple, you could die. That is very serious. Okay, so let's go to Sandy on this one. Sandy, what are his options here, do you think?
Well, what are his damages? Like, how much are your medical bills? How many times did you go to the doctor? Things like that.
Gil, go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. I recouped my senses enough to just let it go.
Yeah.
But if it was more serious and they had to call an ambulance and I went through the whole hospital thing,
you could.
The pro shop didn't have all the information. All they had was the guy's name.
So you're hypothetically saying if you did go to the hospital, you know, what would have been the recourse there, Sandy?
I would assume that he'd have a claim against that person, not so much the golf course, because it's kind of like, you know, there's going to be flying golf balls and stuff.
Right.
So there's a little bit.
Yeah. Is that well, Gil? Listen, I'm an avid golfer myself. I've been very close to getting hit on a number of occasions. There is no question. And, Gil, I'm sorry you had to go through that. It is the golfer's responsibility to wait until a player leaves. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's a driver, not a driver of a golf ball, a driver on the road. It is your responsibility to drive safely and abide by the rules. It's the exact same thing on the golf course. Just because you get into an accident doesn't mean you wanted to do it on purpose. That's why they call it an accident. But it sounds to me like, you know, that was a traumatic experience for him. I'm glad he's okay. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, again, a few other questions that I wanted to get to. And again, if you're just joining us, it's Sandy Van from the Van Law Firm. Can you give people more accident tips that, people could use in Las Vegas?
So if you do get in an accident in Las Vegas, you definitely want to call the police. They usually come out if there's more injuries involved and things like that. But you want the police to document everything because that will definitely help you in case the defendant later on changes their story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's definitely one of the tips. Oh, another tip that people don't ever think of, and it seems kind of like self-evident. You're like, that's really basic. Don't drive too closely. If you have another car in front of you, you want to give a big safe distance from that other car. Maybe you won't hit it, but let's say another car hits you, and then you ricochet and hit the car in front of you.
Right.
So now it's a 3-car pileup. They may blame you. And you're like, oh my gosh, I got pushed into him. But that's another reason not to follow other cars too closely.
That's right. Back up. Do not get anywhere close to my '04 Hyundai Elantra. Okay, you get a very dirty look from me, so just don't do it. That's my gifted treasure. Some more advice. You mentioned a little bit about the slip and falls. I mean, what should you do in a slip and fall? What's the first thing you should do?
You should definitely make an accident report. See if there's any witnesses that were around at the time that you can get their information. Maybe it was an employee or just another patron. You definitely want to get that accident report done there. You want to seek medical treatment as well as soon as possible, whether it's, an ambulance from there or going to the hospital from there. You want to take pictures of what you fell on and realize what you're falling on. Some people are like, oh, it's a liquid, or, they don't even know. And that really makes our job difficult for us to prove things like that.
So for people that are considering giving you a call, and listen, you were my attorney in a case that I was involved in, like I mentioned, about 18 months ago, and you did a phenomenal job. So for people that are thinking of giving you a call, I want you to give out that information, but I also want you to give a little information again, and I might have asked you this question earlier. What separates you from the rest of the pack, and why should people call you if they were injured?
Okay. Our information is we're Van Law Firm. Our phone number is 702-529-1011 or 702-500-HURT. What makes us different?
Yeah.
We actually do care. We gave some examples of that earlier.
Sure.
We do communicate with our clients. It is our policy to communicate with clients. I think that's like the number one complaints from clients saying, hey, my attorney never talks to me or my law firm never talks to me. We do have a policy on that. Our firm actually litigates our own cases. So we have two really good litigators on staff that have, done $100 million cases, $30 million cases, and they file lawsuits. If you're a firm that does not file lawsuits, the insurance company actually indexes and knows who everyone's scores and stats, so they know which law firms are just blowing smoke or which ones actually do file lawsuits, and we do litigate our cases. We actually send our litigators to a bunch of classes. So our litigators, I think we send them to classes, and I pay for them personally, so it's pretty expensive. They're learning techniques on how to pick a jury, how to make the jury sympathetic to our client's cause, just areas of law to use and things like that.
Well, thank you so much, by the way, for coming in. This has been certainly I've learned a lot, very educational. I thought I was a know-it-all, but apparently I'm not. Sandy has definitely educated me, and I look forward to doing this again with you because I think this is a lot of fun, and I think you could actually help some of our listeners with some advice as well, as you just did with Gil. I thought that was great. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sandy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking about a different attorney that we're having tomorrow, Michael Athanati will be joining us for a different reason. He's going to be breaking some big national news with us tomorrow.
Hopefully Steve Sanchez doesn't call him an ambulance chaser.
Yeah, hopefully not. But Steve will be joining us tomorrow as well. We'll join you guys 22 hours from now. We're going to take a 22-hour break. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.